Hello, hello, hello. This is the Longhorn Confidential for Tuesday, September 30th. I'm Danny Davis, the Austin American-Statesman, joined today by Cedric Golden, David Eckert, Thomas Jones. We have all four of us on today because there's a big game this weekend. Texas, after 4 games in non-conference play, finally time for an SEC opponent. Only team in the SEC does not face a league opponent yet. Steve Sarkisian likes to get his non-conference games out of the way. Doesn't like that November game against Who Cares State. He likes to do it early. But that means you're kind of also behind the ball. Ole Miss has already played 3 times. South Carolina has three SEC games. So they're playing a little catch up. But this Saturday, Texas heads to the Swamp, first time since 1940. This will be 2:30 Central Time over on ESPN if you're watching it at home. But Texas was the runner-up in the SEC in 2024. Was lost to Georgia in the SEC championship game. Went into the season with a lot of expectations. One of the favorites to win the championship. But Sed, we'll start with you. If this Texas team trips up, doesn't make it to the SEC championship game. If we're fast forwarding to that, what are we going to say the Achilles heel of this team is from what you've seen from them over these 4 non-conference games?
Daniel, it's number 16, and I'm not talking about Michael Taft. It's Arch Manning. It's QB1. It's the guy that Longhorn Nation thought was a sizable upgrade from Quinn Ewers. It's the progeny from the first family of SEC quarterbacks who hasn't played like it just yet. This is not Sam Houston. This is the Swamp. This is the Gators, and it does taste like chicken. And he's going to have to be 3 times better than DJ Lagway, who's been really bad. And that's even if DJ plays. Arch has got to up his level. And if he doesn't up his level, the Texas Longhorns are not going to make the SEC championship game. Hell, the Texas Longhorns are going to make the CFP if Arch doesn't up his level. He's got to play great. And if he doesn't, we're going to be at a who cares bowl game, to steal a line from Daniel, because Arch Manning is the head of the snake.
But who cares? Bowl game is not the Alamo Bowl. Eck, during the bye week, you got a chance to kind of break down some stats and how they, serve as indicators to a title run. But when it comes to SEC play, same question to you. Do you see any Achilles heels, anything that may concern you about Texas as they head into this part of the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, the correct answer is Arch, right? Like Sed's right. Arch has to prove it. But if you want to take a step back from that, maybe do something a little less obvious. I think I really have not liked the offensive line play. I don't think Steve Sarkisian has either, based on what he said to us when he's asked about it. They're not dealing with movement well up front, which kind of tells you that the mental game maybe isn't quite where it needs to be with them. And when you have a quarterback who's not perfect, who's struggling the way Arch is, an offensive line that's not getting it done limits the ways that you can compensate for that, right? You can't just go into a game and say, "Hey, we're going to run it down your throat and win that way." You can't go into a game and say, "We're just going to give Arch all the time in the world and make it super easy on him." I just don't think they're capable of that against elite athletes. If you're a Texas fan, the thing that can give you a little bit of solace is they're a new group. They're still figuring each other out. I'd expect them to get better, but for right now, they're a major concern.
EJ, what is your potential heel for this Texas team?
Yeah, to kind of go along with what David's saying, that offensive line has to be better, especially in the running game. I mean, Arch is still a young quarterback, what, 6 career starts? That running game is just not producing anything explosive on the ground. Y'all know how many runs of at least 20 yards Texas has had this year? Right,
Three,
three. That's right,
three.
three. And none have come from a running back. Arch has one, receiver Ryan Wingo has one. Hell, the backup quarterback Matthew Caldwell has the longest run of the year. They got to get that running game going. I know Trey Wisner's been out since the opener at Ohio State. CJ Baxter's been banged up, but the running backs are averaging 4.5 yards a carry, and that's against San Jose State, Sam Houston, UTEP. They got to get better, especially against that tougher SEC defenses.
I like it.
Is at home. I'm not that smart. I've just screwed up one recording so far today, so I already knew TJ's answer. But my answer is fourth down. Going when this Texas team is going for it, they're only hitting at about 41%, which is I think 106 of the 130 FBS teams, which is obviously not good. When they choose to kick, kick it, which is seems to be few and far between because Mason Shipley's just been left to chill on the sideline a lot. He just hasn't hit a pressure kick yet. I know he's hit all the kicks he's been asked to hit. He's been asked to hit, but he was left on the sideline during the Ohio State game. They played three nobodies at home. How is he going to respond when he's in the swamp? How is he going to respond when he's at Georgia? This is different than Texas State. I know he's an older guy. His brother's kicked at Arkansas. Maybe it's not a big deal. I'm thinking too much of it, but that is something. Being since we covered a Texas team last year that did not win an SEC title because Bert Auburn could not hit a kick that we've seen him hit 500 times before in the SEC championship game. That's a concern. I think overall special teams has not been great. I think they have one kickoff return of 25 yards this season. So I would say special teams as a whole is my potential Achilles heels because that was the Achilles heel last year. Although the offensive concerns are definitely something to discuss. This Florida team, not spectacular. They were 1-3 so far, 0-1 in SEC play. Two of those losses are to LSU. They are to Miami, which are both top 5 teams when Florida played them. But before the season, we may have circled this game on the calendar, said that this game in the Swamp is the game of the year outside of Georgia, but I don't think that any of us are going to say that right now. So as we look at this SEC schedule, we're not going to talk about Georgia, but what is like the one big SEC game that you're kind of looking at that you may think, okay, this if Texas, Texas better be paying attention to this game because this could be trouble for the Longhorns. TJ, we'll go to you first.
Well, I think I'm going to leave Starkville for our compadre David Eckert, who used to work in Mississippi, because that Mississippi State team is, I think, it's for
Cowbell.
real. Huh? I,
Cowbell.
you know what? I'm not going to go Cowbell, though. I'm still going to go Cotton Bowl. I know John Mateer broke his thumb. He had successful surgery. I've never heard of someone having unsuccessful surgery, but he's borderline. Will he be ready for the Red River Shootout in a couple of weeks? I think he will. The doctors say maybe. I think John Mateer, if he's back, OU is a national championship contender because their defense is awesome. And if Mateer's back healthy, playing well, that's just, I think, going to be a war at Red River.
Ted, what is your toughest test on the Texas schedule if we're not talking about Georgia in on November 8th in Athens or November 15th, excuse me.
It'd be easy to say A&M, but that's at the end of the year. So I think it's treacherous before A&M because, like we said, Georgia, but don't sleep on Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt Commodores. The Doors are as good as we thought they were. And remember, Texas went to Vandy and won 27-24 last year, and they were behind in that game. And I think Vandy's better than that team from last year that beat Bama. So they're coming in here. They're, I think, 15th or 16th in the country right now. They're riding high. They have confidence. They are a veteran ball club, and they have a quarterback who knows the system. He knows what he's doing. And we asked him in Atlanta, who's the best quarterback in the SEC? And he goes, you're looking at him. And I looked at Daniel, I like it. I like it when they're confident like that. So for me, it's Vandy at the house. And that's going to be their first game in 42 days away from DKR. And they might come in there fat and happy if they take out these next 4 opponents. So definitely a trap game for the Horns.
Pavia said better than him saying that. His team believes that. Vanderbilt
Mhm.
believes that he's the
That's a
best
big
quarterback in
deal.
the SEC.
That's big. That's big.
What's your pick? Are you going back to Mississippi or what's your pick?
No, I will say bring your earplugs to that game if you don't want to get tinnitus. But I
I don't even know what that is.
the
Tinnitus. That
it's
sounds like an
it's
adult problem. I don't know what that is.
ear ringing. Said your ears are gonna ring.
Well, just say that. I've got a sixth grade education. Just say that.
uh, I don't know. I mean, I'll go with A&M, right? A&M looks great. They played defense last week for the first time this year. If that keeps up, like I tell you what, those offensive weapons paired with a competent defense, I think is really scary. But I do think you're on to something said with Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. I think a couple of the games that we were kind of counting on to be gimmies don't really look that way,
Only
right? Like
Kentucky.
look what Tennessee just had to do to win in Starkville, right? I mean, and Vandy again, they're gonna play a style of football that really shrinks the margins. So, there's some dangerous games on this schedule that maybe we hadn't tabbed at that way before the season.
Yeah, my pick is Vandy as well. For a lot of reasons Seth said. They have a veteran quarterback, Diego Pavia. Cedric Alexander is going to want to rush for about 4,000 yards with his
That'd be
folks in the
great.
crowd and local boy
Big
come
J.
home.
Well
And
said.
is this not a great time on the schedule for Texas? As Seth mentioned, they'll be coming off this brutal stretch where they're on the road for 42 days. They get a bye after this game, but after that they have Georgia, Arkansas, and A&M, and those are two rivalry games in Georgia. So if you're looking ahead, you can definitely get caught slipping. And this is a veteran Vanderbilt team that's been playing really well. They opened the season. I know Virginia Tech's terrible, but they still beat them handily. They beat South Carolina, and South Carolina was a preseason darling in this conference. And in the last 2 weeks against some non-conference teams, they scored at will, 55 and I think 70 last week. And we've seen Texas struggle, against these bad non-conference teams. Vanderbilt just did not seem to have those problems. So I like the way the Commodores are playing. I like their quarterback. I like Cedric Alexander. He's going to be our favorite Cedric that week. No offense, Cedric Golden, but I know Cedric's grandmother had to say that on the air. But give me Vanderbilt, which is kind of funny because that's definitely not something we could have imagined ourselves saying 2 years ago, maybe even before this season. But this Florida team, as we mentioned, 1-3 this season. 2:30 kick this week in Central Time at the Swamp. ESPN, if you're watching at home, Eck will let you go first, so I can spread it around evenly. What is one thing you've learned about the Gators as we prep for this SEC opener for the Longhorns?
Yeah, something I wrote about yesterday and that Steve Sarkisian kind of had to say was he's expecting them to play shell defense, right? And so they're going to try to limit the explosive down the field passing plays that Texas can create. So that means for Texas, you're going to have to either find a way to create those explosives underneath, or you're going to have to break off a 5, 10, 12 play drive without making a mistake to go score a touchdown. And, I think the way that the offense is functioning right now, that might be a little tough. So we'll see how Texas kind of copes with the, conservative defensive look that Florida's going to throw at them.
Then what does your Florida scouting report tell us?
Moi?
Yeah.
Billy Napier, if he gets fired after this game or the next game, he's going to be the second worst percentage-wise losing coach in Florida history. And there's been 11 coaches dating all the way back to 1946. And so he's on the hot seat, obviously. I don't know that beating Texas can save his job, but it could cool that seat off. And they've had a very rich tradition of coaches, top by, Urban, Steve Spurrier. Those guys were amazing. And so Will Muschamp had a nice mini run in there, but Billy Napier has been an absolute disaster. And I really thought they'd fire him before this game. So he's still standing. And if they win, maybe he's still going to be the coach. But me personally, I don't think that Billy Napier makes it through the season.
Yeah, what is your Florida fun fact? The Gators, like Texas, were on a bye last week, so they're just as rested as the Longhorns. But what have you learned about Florida so far?
Well, I said I was talking about Billy. I mean, he's also the team's play caller, and he's been under extreme heat to give up those duties. But he said this week he's going to keep calling plays. But this Florida team, it's almost like a poor man's version of Texas. Like Texas offense has been up and down. Florida's just been down. Texas offense or defense has been great. Florida's defense has been very, very good, even though they don't really make impactful plays. Not a lot of takeaways, not a lot of sacks. They're just so solid. They really are. Their linebacker, Miles Graham, is a fun guy to watch. He's a Gainesville native. They just play such fundamentally sound defense. They're going to make it hard for Texas to score points, in my opinion. And even if you have a poor offense, which the Gators do, you stay within one or two big plays, it's a recipe for an upset.
Florida offense, DJ Lagway has struggled, has more interceptions than touchdown passes, but they actually have not fumbled the ball at all this year. Lost a fumble. One of 18 FBS teams that can claim that. And this Texas team is pretty good at forcing fumbles. Anthony Hill and this linebacker crew, they love to punch the ball out. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that, those kind of things go against each other. And I mentioned it earlier, but this is Texas's first trip to Gainesville since 1940. I believe it was a 26-0 game win for the Longhorns back then. So even like the hardcore Texas fans, I doubt many of them were alive or able to remember a football game from 85
Kirk
years
Bolt
ago.
was
So
alive. Kirk was alive.
Kirk was not that alive. But this will be a nice little bucket list item for some Texas fans getting to see a cool stadium, which is a perk for going into a new conference. You got to see Ohio State Stadium earlier, which was 20-year gap. This year you get to see the Swamp 85 years after Texas's last trip. So that's pretty cool too. But that's going to do it for us. As we said, 2:30 Central Time on Saturday, ESPN if you're watching at home, statesman.com if you want to follow us and our work online. As said, what's going on this week with the On Second Thought podcast?
Oh, we're efforting a great Florida alum who's on national TV, and I'm waiting to hear back from the Duck. Either way, we're definitely dropping Thursday morning on Second Thought.
So we'll also be back here later in the week talking Florida football with some a Florida reporter. So we'll get a little bit more intel, a little bit deeper scouting report from our friends in Gainesville. But that's going to do it for us. Statesman.com throughout the week for all of your coverage. Statesman.com on game day for all of our coverage there. We appreciate you watching on YouTube or on the website, listening to us wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you all in Gainesville. Deuces.